सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Happy New Year to everybody. I know many of you sitting here have met me since January 1st many times, but out there, those who are logging in, to them, Happy New Year. I know I can hear them say, same to you. So let us chant from the first shloka. Homeworks are still due, just mentioning it. Though somebody has deleted the entire folder on the Google Docs, so please forward your homeworks. Let us begin. कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडम् कृतिमहो ददौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाङ्मनः कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जपश्चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगत ईषधीयुक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृद्देवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्दतः चित्तजं जपध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परम् भेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनीमता भावशून्यसद्भावसुस्थितिः भावनाबलाद् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृस्थले मनः स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितं वायुरोधनात् लीयते मनः जालपक्षिवद् रोधसाधनं चित्तवायवश्चित्क्रियायुताः शाखयोर्द्वयी शक्तिमूलका लयविनाशने उभयरोदने लयगतं पुनर्भवति नोऽमृतं प्राणबन्धनात् लीनमानसम् एकचिन्तनात् नाशमेत्यदः नष्टमानसोत्कृष्टयोगिनः कृत्यमस्ति किं स्वस्तितिं यतः। Till what shloka did we complete? Okay, at least this time that answer is clear. So we talked about manolaya and manonasha. Laya is when something is not interesting and you are sitting through and the mind dozes off. That's called mana laya. But what happens to that mana laya? It comes back again and again and again in its own patterns. But what happens to the individual or the seeker who is practicing manonasha? What aspect of manas or mind will be completely annihilated and brought under our own control? One aspect of it, thank goodness, cannot be destroyed, is the aspect wherein the mind synchronizes and consolidates every moment into an experience through the organs of perception action, all the data received. So we are not talking about that. We are talking about that aspect of mind which is not presently under our control and it is unwilled. We don't even know what triggers it. Something seems to be shooting it off, and it is terrible when it is such an emotional thing that is happening and you don't seem to have any control over it. You say sit and it says shut up. You say let's do something, it says I am not interested, I don't have the mood. Where does this come from? Instead of investigating where it comes from, it is better to investigate how to stop it. How do we stop it? That is given in the next shloka. Next shloka meaning in the 14th one, which we have just read out. Pranabandhanat leena manasam ekachintanat nashametyadaha. So there are two steps here. Every time I read every single shloka of Upadesha sara, what hits me the most powerful is such simple words used, such few words used, but so much is conveyed through these impactful words. It's not that he is trying to explain the entire Bhagavad Gita here, but all these beautiful pointers through Bhagavad Gita or various Upanishads, he has put them in 4 simple words here. Prana bandhana leena manasam ekachintanat nashametyadaha. By observing your breath, the thoughts can be regulated. Even now, if you can sit straight and observe your breath, and when I say observe your breath, prana vikshana, vikshana to observe. You are not trying to change or manipulate the breath in any order. When a conscious mind tries to observe its breath, one's own breath, the breathing naturally becomes slow, rhythmic and steady. It is a natural state. An unconscious mind trying to observe the breathing, it's chaotic. So we need to reach to that status. How do we reach? So as an initial seeker, we are taught how to regulate. We are taught how to regulate this mind of ours. We are taught how to regulate this mind of ours through the breathing process. How do you breathe? It's not a very conscious effort. So what do? So sit straight, and as you sit straight, you gently close your eyes so that the external light or the ambience doesn't distract you any further. And then what we do is regulate the inhalation as slow as you can inhale. And then slowly exhale. Do not try to retain that breath inside or outside. All that you need to do is focus on trying to breathe in and out as slow as possible. Even if you do this 4 or 5 times, you would see that it has created a beautiful impact. You observe that whenever we sit for the satsang and we start with the Om. So what do? We breathe in, inhale, and as long as the breath can last, effortlessly, we try to breathe out. As we breathe out, chanting Om, how many times are we doing it? 3 times. By the end of the 3rd time, you will feel completely disconnected or detached from the earlier thought processes, and it snaps us into this present moment. Prana bandhana. We breathe because it is a default process, thankfully so. And Bhagavan created this beautiful universe wherein he has put the breathing process as an involuntary process and the hunger and the efforts to satiate it as a voluntary process. Imagine if it would have been reversed. Half the population or more than half the population would have died. Why? Oops, forgot breathing. Everybody conscious. We take it for granted. Okay. Whenever you have an idle time, what do? Probably flip the phone, check the statuses on various networks. What else? Maybe flip some TV channels. Instead, the moment you get an idle time, put all these things away. And that would be a great upavasa to practice. Even in the YAP course, when we were trying to practice mauna, oh my God, it was such a hilarious mockery of mauna. We had to remind, this is your mauna time. Oh, we forgot. So find a moment in your life as a regular practice that you can sit back, close your eyes and do what? Just observe your breath. And once you find the taste of doing it, whenever you are tired, whenever you are overwhelmed, whenever there is too much of responsibilities pressuring you in and you are about to cave in, just close your eyes, observe your breath. It snaps you into that present moment. And what best tool? Prana bandhanat leena manasam. What happens? All the unnecessary agitated thoughts that are being processed, unwilled thoughts, they stop. Prana bandhanat leena manasam. So when you sit on the seat of meditation, what do you need to do? Clear the inside clutter. How do you clear that inside clutter? Breathe. And we had taught you 2 other breathing techniques. What were the 2 breathing techniques? Kapala bhati and anuloma and viloma. Anulom Vilom is one process, Kapalabhati is this other process. It is not Kapalbhati, it is Kapalabhati. Kapala means the skull or the head, that which covers the cranium, that portion. Kapala, the upper portion of the skull. Bhati, that which illumines, that which brings illumination, meaning it makes you more alert. That is called Kapalabhati. How do you do Kapalabhati? Come on, how do you do? I only remember Shabhana. 1, 2, 1, 2. How do you do it? So you breathe in and from your diaphragm you breathe out. Okay, this is one exercise. And what is Anulom Vilom? Okay, you breathe in through your left nostrils and then hold it and then release it through your right nostrils. Again, breathe through your right nostrils, hold it in and breathe out. Do these two for a cycle of 21 times each and then observe your breath. It will clear your mind out. Prana bandhanat leena manasam. With the restraint of the prana, the unnecessary processing that is constantly rushing through. So prana bandhana, what does it do? It is something like the app killer. You have the app killers on your devices, right? So the background processing which is constantly happening is snapped. It's killed. Then what do you do? Eka chintanat nashametyadaha. You have to contemplate on that one reality. There are 3 steps to this process of contemplation. First step. You take one single thought and you repeat that single thought again and again and again in sync with your breathing. Now what is this process called? Yes, you should be telling it with a smirk. What's that? I could see that. It is called japa. So you breathe in and with your exhalation you synchronize the name of the Lord and repeat it. Supposing your Ishtadeva is Bhagwan Shiva. So you breathe in Om Namah Shivaya. Again you breathe in. It is not a marathon or it's not a running race wherein you are trying to Om Namah Shivaya, 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 Om Namah Shivaya. What are you trying to do? Create more agitation. But instead it has to reduce those agitations. So do it in sync with your breathing. The first stage of Eka Chintana. This is one thought on that one Lord and that thought in sync with your breath is constantly repeated. Incessantly repeated. As you are sincerely trying to repeat that one thought for as much long a period, the other thoughts that would have been entertained unwilled in your mind are cut aside. There is no scope. And then there are people who say, when I sit for my japa, all the unnecessary thoughts come, what do I do? It means 2 things. You have not done your breathing exercise properly. Second, that you are not focusing on your japa with sincerity. Third, you are unnecessarily focusing on the thought and its content and the quality of that thought. It is immaterial whether it is a good thought, bad thought, and a not necessary thought, whatever it is, don't dwell in it. Just observe it, and it has to fall apart by itself. I keep observing Swamiji, but it's such a dirty thought, what do I do? If you are already observing it, you don't tag it with a dirty tag or a good tag. The thought and the content is immaterial. It has to be stopped. So the first stage is to have one thought repeated incessantly, in sync with your breathing. The second one is a little more complicated step. The second step is, it is on the same theme, but various thoughts entertained about that one particular theme. Do you know the Ganesha Stotram or Ganesha Pancharatna? Can you chant the first shloka? Louder. Mudakarartamodakam sada vimukti sadhakam kladharavatam sakam vilasi lokarakshakam anayakaikanayakam namamitam vinayakam. Now all these words that have been used are describing that form of Lord. If Lord Ganesha is your Ishtadaiva, there are these dhyana shlokas. Supposing it is Bhagavan Shiva, Namaste astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Trambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikalagnikalaya Kalagni Rudraya Neelakantaya Mrityunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha. If you have grown up here in Balavihar, you should know it, because we repeat it every Sunday. So there are these dhyana shlokas. Before you sit on the seat of contemplation, go through that shloka, go through every word and its meaning. Put that book aside. And then think of each word and the depth of its meaning as it is explained. Now, how should you visualize that Lord? When you think of your loved ones, your parents, your family, when you think of them in your head, are they photographs in your head, collaged together, or are they live format? How do you see them? It's like a movie, it's a three-dimensional, like. Similarly, when you think of the Lord, is it two-dimensional photograph or is it an enlivened form? All these words, mudakarartha modakam, mudakaraha, the one who gives happiness. How does one give anybody happiness? What is the meaning of that happiness? How can somebody give me happiness? So somebody said, because he has modakam. That is why he gives me happiness. Mudakarartha modakam. Modaka is that laddu which he holds in his hand. Therefore, Ganesha is very, very dear to me because he gives me instant happiness because of the laddu in his hand. Modaka. Modaka, that which transcends the processing of mind and gives us the highest state of bliss, is called modaka. Mudakara, the one who is already established in that happiness, alone can give us that happiness by transcending all the limitations. To such Lord Ganesha, my prayers, my salutations, my prostrations. So you are thinking of Ganesha and his various attributes of, through the Puranas and various scriptures that we have seen, and then we recognize. What do we do here Ekachintana, there is only one thought about that particular Lord, but there are various thoughts about the Lord being entertained. Now comes the third one, which is indicated here. Here, Ekachintana does not mean, I have given you two other meanings, but actual meaning of it here is, it is not repeating thought, but one thought retained. Does it make sense? In a japa, what are you doing? Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. You are repeating it. But Ekachintana here means you are not repeating the thought, or you have done with the processing of repeating the thought. The mind has become so focused that you are not repeating the thought, but you are just maintaining one thought. One thought of what? Ekachintanat nashametyadaha. Contemplating or maintaining that one thought of that supreme reality that I am. Therefore, the instructional statement Tattvamasi leads to the Anubhava Aham Brahmasmi. Tattvamasi says, you are that essence. Now the instruction is that you are that essence. So what should be my experience? I am that essence. I am that Brahman. And this thought is not repeated. Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi. You are not repeating the thought. Okay, let me give you another example. Example will make it easier. Do it at your own risk, this experiment. First try it out with your own family members. Somebody preferably who is younger than you. When they are snoring, wake them up and ask them, what gender are they? Male or female? Supposing I wake you up in the middle of night and ask you this question. You are coming for some camp, I might do this experiment. And even now when I ask you the question, what gender are you? Do you have to think? Wait, let me think. I think I am. Okay, thankfully so that all of you this side are sitting in one gender and this side are the other gender. So what gender are you? What gender are you? Female. So to know that I am this gender, do you do any abhyasa? Nitya abhyasa. Every day morning you wake up, take a cold shower, bath and sit. I am male. I am a man. I cannot be a female. I am a man alone. Do you do such abhyasa? Aham purushaha asmi. Aham purushaha eva. Natu stri, natu stri, natu stri. Do you do any such practice? But in and through, is that consistent thought not maintained? That I am. That is the identification with this physical aspect. Once you transcend it, here you are trying to maintain that one thought identification that I am consciousness. Yes.
I was going to ask, is it a thought that's maintained, or is it something that you're aware of, like an experience, like you just know? Like it's, because I feel like
at this stage, it would not be a stage of awareness, but it is a thought maintained. Her question was, is it a thought maintained, or is it that I am aware that I am existing, or that I am consciousness? Now here is a thought maintained.
Maybe not a question, but I was asked,
Anuja's question. Okay.
so can we watch the image of the Lord in our heads as we do japa, or are the first two stages separate?
As you are doing japa, yes, you can watch the live form, enlivened form of the Lord in your heart. You can imagine it. But even so, that you are not entertaining multiple thoughts, there is just the image of the Lord and the name of the Lord that you are repeating. It is still the first step. Whereas the second step is you have multiple thoughts of that one single image. And the third one is where you really get, it's quite intense, wherein you are not distracted by anything, you just maintain one thought and it is not repeated. It is like animated suspension. Om. And you just continue with that Om. You getting the point? And it's very difficult. Even to maintain one thought of Om Namah Shivaya repeated without being distracted by other thoughts, at this stage is very difficult. To get to a stage wherein you just have one thought and you sit with that thought. You are not repeating the thought, you are not looking into the meaning of the thought, you are not trying to identify its pros and cons, you just are maintaining that thought. I am consciousness. Aham Brahmasmi. Eka Chintana.
I had a follow-up question. Is it not recommended to do japa while staring at our picture or murti?
So Padma's question is it not recommended that we stare at the murti or the image of the Lord and observe while staring at it, repeat the name? You can start with it, but that image has to be enlivened in your own heart. There is one episode of Gurudev's life wherein, when he was young, like any other kid, he was bored with this everyday ritual of their evening puja at their ancestral home. So what did he do? He would go there, sit and visualize that image of the Lord, seated in meditation, Lord Shiva in meditation, and then he would recreate that Lord in his own mind, an enlivened form, and then he would have a dialogue with him. In his own mind, he would have the dialogue with the Lord, saying, probably is like, let's go play cricket. I don't know, he was just a child. But he would do it with the Lord in his imagination. And little did he know that this is the very process of intense Manasa Puja, or the process of dhyana of the Lord. So from the image, you transcend into that subtler form of creating that enlivened form within your own heart as you are doing your japa. As you are doing your japa, you reach to that stage of absolute silence, wherein then the japa ceases to form. If you can maintain that silence for say more than a minute or two, then you come to the stage wherein you can throw in that thought, self-willed, self-disciplined thought, that I am consciousness. See, it is not of great importance if you can maintain Aham Brahmasmi. The concept there is, I am existential reality. I am. Just maintain that thought. And then it transforms itself to the next stage into not just being a thought, but an experience of awareness. So it comes to the next stage. So one thought to be maintained. Nashametyadaha. The unwilled processing of thought will be finally not just curtailed but annihilated. Pranabandhanat leena manasam ekachintanat nashametyadaha. Are there any more questions?
Yes, Anuja had a follow-up question. What's an example of contemplating with multiple thoughts as opposed to doing it while doing japa? Is it like studying the Puranas versus your imagination?
Her example threw me off. Start again.
What's an example of contemplating with multiple thoughts as opposed to doing it while doing japa?
While you are doing japa, you are just repeating one thought again and again. Though the image that you have enlivened in your heart is of the Lord, and you are repeating just one thought, this one thought loop that is going over again and again. Whereas the thought contemplation is like the Manasa Puja, that though it is the Lord, but you are doing various kinds of services, various kinds of thoughts about the Lord, to the Lord, unto the Lord. So you are washing his feet, or you are doing the abhisheka, or you are dressing him up with beautiful clothes, adorning lot of what you call alankara. The true translation would be makeup, but no, it is not makeup. So the alankara of the Lord. So they are all multiple thoughts, but all focusing in one focal point, which is the Lord.
Yeah, Ram had a question.
Who is it?
Ram,
Okay.
he had a question. So he's asking, during the silence that you have after the japa, like what happens to the consciousness of the breath? Like where does that?
There you don't need to, it is taken. Once you start doing your japa and the focal point starts from the breathing, but after a point breathing goes into the background. In that silence there is no more focusing on the breathing as well, there is just presence. In that presence now you entertain one thought, I am, wherein even that I drops. Just am is the awareness. It comes to the next stage. So in the 15th shloka, as a conclusion to this thought, it is said, Nashtamaanasaha utkrushta yoginah krityamasti kim swasthitim yataha. Nashtamaanasaha, once that unwilled mind is destroyed, to such an evolved seeker, there is no more doing, there is just pure abidance in the self, there is just awareness that is left. And that is called being in meditation. Rest of the processes are called contemplation and japa, and they cannot be called as meditation. So you can teach people the other processes, but to be in meditation is your effort to reach there. Krityam asti kim, there is nothing more to be accomplished by this man of evolved nature. Why? The unwilled clutter has been stopped. Our own mind, it doesn't listen to us. Even now when you are trying to listen to me, how many times your mind has taken a sortie outside? Has it gone? I can actually tell you whose minds have gone out. And the look that comes out, I have given you enough number of times. Invariably it happens. Suddenly, it has gone out. unconscious, it just happens. All that clutter can be cut out. Permanently, it is not just with observation of breath, it will be stopped. But completely to remove everything out. See, when you are working for somebody, Gurudev used to say, how do you know that the boss is in the office? You see that everybody is in at their desk working or looking as if they are working. Okay. That is one stage. When you start your own company, do you do that also? Nobody is seeing, so I don't need to work. No. You are so focused. You are not being monitored. So with the breathing, it is like you are being monitored. So it stops. The moment that focal point changes, again there is a gush of thoughts. How do you remove them? Introduce the self-disciplined, self-introduced thought through the japa, eka chintana. Then develop it through contemplation. Finally reach to that silence, and then comes the abidance in the self. Krityamasthi swasthitim yataha. Swasthiti, having reached one's own true nature. Now, as I said, the mind, one aspect of it is only killed. Otherwise, I would be scared to be realized. What will happen if somebody's mind is completely destroyed? They are called gone cuckoo in the upstairs. So, realization is not like being a madcap, but instead, such person, whichever field that they choose to interact, they can entertain a thought, direct that thought, withdraw that thought at their will. Therefore, at any given point of time, they are 100% involved in that particular moment. There is no disturbance or distraction from within. Their focal point is so intense. So, whenever Gurudev used to meet for 7 days, after the 7th day, when we would talk to each other, everybody had something to say that, this time when Gurudev came, it felt as if he came only for me. Because that particular 5-10 minutes that he spent with you, he was so intensely with you that it feels fulfilling. And the best part is, even if there are thousands of them coming to meet him, every one of them come out with the same intense feeling. That is being in the present moment. That you are aware of everything. Presently, when we are trying to listen to, some of the other organs of perception action are hanging in there. You are not completely aware of it. But in the yoga sadhana, it is said that such a one who is in the present moment, through every sense organ, can perceive everything with such minute details that there is not a scope of anything to be missed. So that makes the experience richer. All aspects of that experience have been completely absorbed. Presently, what happens? You go through the experience, you are eating, right? Sometimes you don't even know what you are eating. You're like, just get done with it. Or you are driving, you're oblivious to various things. But this is the person who interacts and involves in wherever they are so intensely in that present moment that there is no distraction from within. Such person is called established in the self. Being in that present moment, not engulfed with this unnecessary processing, is the most joyous, blissful state of existence. And such bliss is a permanent platform of being. I won't even use the word experiencing. It's just a permanent state of being. And those who interact with such people, they also get the glimpses of such state of being. Your mind completely becomes suspended in their presence. It's not that you have been hypnotized, but your mind, it feels, in hypnotism sometimes you will feel the vacuum, but here it feels so full, lively, and yet it is completely devoid of any distraction or disturbance. Krityamasti kim swastitim yataha. We have 6 more minutes, I believe. So, any questions? Not just from the online, but you also, any questions? Did you understand the concept?
The something good stuff, just the retaining the one God. I think I'm just trying to think about how to grasp that. I mean, if you consciously choose one God, and that's what you're focusing on. But that seems very different from being. I don't know if I'm explaining that well. I'll have to think about how to ask that actually.
Okay, whenever you get the clarity of your question, then we will get the clarity of your answer. Yes.
For the ekachita, how can you focus on a thought without thinking about it or contemplating on it?
Because all his question is for the ekachintana, how can you retain one thought without contemplating about it? Because all that contemplation that has to be done is already done in the second stage. Multiple thoughts of one theme, you are already done with it. There are no more doubts. Therefore, you can retain one thought. As long as there is doubt within our understanding, with lack of clarity, then there will be multiple thoughts and you will have to process it only through contemplation. Making sense?
So, can you say like that's the last thought you will have?
That's the last thought that you will have, or that you can entertain.
Is that last thought, is it like an experience or is it just a thought?
It is like an experience. It is there is that one thought maintained and you observing that one thought. So there is still that duality.
So when I tried to visualize that, the first thought that came to mind was saying like Om Namah Shivaya just really slowly for a long, like an infinite amount of time, one thought, but then that, because eventually you reach the end. And I was thinking, okay, just picture the words in your head and just
Scroll them.
Not scrolling, just a projection of Om Namah Shivaya in your head. It's one thought of that.
Try it. It seems to be a good idea. But still, that is an image that you are creating. Right?
But still one thought of one image.
True. It will still be considered as the japa process. Here there is no imagery even. There is just thought and being in that thought.
That's why it's hard to grasp because
Don't try to grasp it.
we have so far.
Ambika, don't try to grasp it, but instead start with the prana bandhana and then do the japa, do the contemplation, and in order to do this japa and contemplation, your shastra vichara should be there, and added along with it your puja should be there in place. which will help you benefit in these two processes. So once we accomplish this, then we can come back to this one thought business later. Yes, Devaki.
Is that experience of awareness once you have one thought, which is the same experience of deep sleep?
You lost me there in the last exam.
It's
Maintaining one thought, is that like deep sleep?
that experience that comes from that one thought retention, it's an experience of awareness, correct?
Experience of?
Isness or awareness.
Amness, okay.
Is that the same?
It is, her question is the final, even after this one thought, when you finally abide in yourself in the state of being, is it something similar to deep sleep? In deep sleep, there is no awareness at that moment of that particular moment, but here you are completely aware of it. So the absence of awareness and being aware of it is a huge difference. So that is why deep sleep is called ignorance, whereas this experience is called illumined. But you can say they are comparable from only one standpoint, that there are no thoughts. That's the only comparable commonness in them. Otherwise, they are two extremes. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. And I invoke Lord's and the entire Guru Parampara's blessings that may your 2014 bring amazing experiences that constantly challenge you to be better than what you have already been. And may Lord give you that strength and wisdom to constantly grow in this path. Happy New Year again. Oh, you have more questions? Okay. Okay, there are two more questions. Sit down. Louder.
You said earlier thoughts are immaterial, yet last week you mentioned thoughts are material because the food we eat affects our thoughts.
Who is this? Last week I said that the thoughts are material. Last week I said thoughts are matter. Thoughts are the subtlest form of matter, and therefore what you eat matters in the construction of that thought. It has a subtler influence. But now we are not focusing, by the 15th shloka it is expected that you have grown from the matter layer to the conscious principle. Therefore, from the perspective of consciousness, the thought and the content of it is immaterial. So, you must have been confused between matter and material. So, second question.
And then I also have a third. So anyway, second is Padma. Sadhana question. What's the best way to outsmart the mind? I know what the right thing to do is, puja, R3, etc. But sometimes the mind has so many logical and rational reasons to do otherwise. In the moment, those logical rationales seem legitimate.
How to outsmart the mind? There is only one method to outsmart the mind, is consistency and discipline. Even in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihyate. Abhyasa, consistency. Vairagya, that which is immaterial. Have the courage to cut it aside. And while cutting it aside, you have to be ruthless about it. That this is something which is blocking me from my growth, I have to drop it. Abhyasa and Vairagya. That was for Padma's question.
Meeral has a question.
Oh, Meeral is also here. Good.
Swamiji has mentioned our practices should translate into daily
it is not an Miral's question is that our sadhana should translate into our day to day practices. Is it a natural process? Until it becomes a natural process, our sadhana has not really fructified. So, until it becomes natural, we have to intensify our sadhana. Until then, we have a long journey to trek, and we are supposed to be the trailblazers. Any more questions? Done? I am glad even Miral joined us. Okay. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This time finally. Are you able to post the audio?